Hi, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and we couldn't be happier to host the 4th annual Insight Jam. I want to thank everyone who's participating this week, as well as our Insight Jam sponsors, DataStax, Monte Carlo, Denodo, HighGear, and Seller Data. I also want to thank our Solutions Review editors and staff for pulling this event together. When we started this in 2019, we wanted to take a moment at the end of the year to celebrate enterprise technology with a social media event offering best practices and predictions. This will be our biggest jam ever, including 16 live-streamed expert panel discussions over 4 days. And we intend to keep the insights flowing in 2023 with the launch of an expert subscription site for any tech professional who wants to publish posts on Solutions Review. Again, thank you all for being here and enjoy the Insight Jam.
Solutions Review presents Insight Jam, a social media celebration of enterprise technology. Hello and welcome back to the 4th annual Insight Jam. My name is Jonathan Paula. I'm the Director of Multimedia here at Solutions Review. And today is Work Tech Wednesday. And for our second panel of the afternoon, we've got another group of awesome tech experts to answer the question, is no-code automation the way of the future? We have six people from around the globe joining me. But before we get to them and our introductions, I'd like to thank our diamond level sponsor of this panel, HighGear, and play a quick video from them. All right. Thank you to HighGear again for sponsoring this year's Insight Jam, and Vaughn, their CEO, for joining us for this panel. As we begin the introductions, I'd like to invite each of you to take 60 seconds, tell the audience a bit about yourself, what excites you about this topic, what your background and expertise is. And we'll start with our moderator, Dinesh, who's agreed to lead this discussion. Good luck, gentlemen. I'll see you at the end of the show.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hey, I'm Dinesh. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Kissflow. Have more than 20 years of experience in creating rule engine, workflow engine platforms. So no code is the new buzzword. So we have an expert panel over here. Probably the next 1 hour, we are going to discuss about what it means for the business and what are the challenges normally the business face in this new paradigm as well. Thank you. So Juan, over to you.
Yeah, so again, about 20 years as well in process automation technology. I've built and moved on from a tech company or two and are now totally focused. We're now totally focused on HighGear, which is a platform for no-code workflow automation. And that 20 years of experience has been primarily with enterprise technology and enterprise customers. And it's been very interesting to watch the slow and careful and now accelerated adoption of these kinds of technologies in the enterprise market. Excited to be here with all of you today.
Okay. Anthony?
Yeah, thanks, Dinesh. Anthony Channon, so I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer for Intent HQ. My background's really in kind of big data analytics, AI, and machine learning. I've been probably in that space for 12 to 15 years or so. The no-code adventure for us really is about how do we get these things into the hands of normal people and democratize the kind of outputs that those capabilities can produce. And yeah, really excited to take part in today's discussion.
Thank you. Jay, over to you.
Hey, everybody. My name's Jay. I lead product design and strategy at a company called Alteryx, who is a leader in analytics automation. I've been here about 2 years, but I've spent my entire career trying to enable very casual business users with advanced analytics. Before I was here, I spent a number of years at IBM in their Watson marketing business, which was focused around applying the Watson AI technology to the discipline of marketing. I've also spent time at a text mining pioneer named ClearForest and the data mining pioneer SPSS. So have a whole wealth of knowledge around analytics and advanced analytics, and in particular, how we can democratize it and bring it to each and every employee.
Thank you. Sam?
Hi, my name is Sam Zita. I've spent the past 20 plus year in the world of integration. Started enterprise application integration, EAIs, and then move on to the SOA and everything else. We've led multiple teams across multiple integration companies, and right now leading a team here that is in charge of creating solutions for the different verticals for a leading iPaaS. A lot of our customers actually are asking for the citizen developer to be able to get their hands on the low-code, no-code platform, which is forcing us to advance in that direction very quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. Anders?
Hi, everybody. My name is Anders Lilovic, and I'm the founder and CEO of Focal Point. Focal Point is a B2B procurement tool that helps automate workflow and analytics within the procurement department. Before I started Focal Point, I spent 20 years as a practitioner in procurement, managing large and complex procurement organizations. And the genesis for starting Focal Point is the so-called best-in-class solutions would tell me what my process should be based on how they have implemented and built their solutions. And I didn't find that to be satisfying at all. So building a solution where procurement organizations can set up their own processes and manage it how they want to is really the genesis for what we are doing.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anders. So if you look at the no-code, it is pretty much the new cloud, right? When like 15 years back, when people started talking about cloud, there is a term called cloud washing, because pretty much every tool they hosted in any of this the cloud providers without changing the basic architecture and call themselves as cloud solutions, right? So pretty much if you look at the last 2 years, in every category we have the no-code, low-code tools, all right? What does it actually mean, right? We have like experts from who have no-code integration platforms, no-code analytics platforms, no-code workflow automation platforms, right? For pretty much every category, we have a no-code product out there, right? What does it mean in your own category, right? For example, in procurement, what is no-code, no-code?
So in procurement, essentially what we're doing is we're taking all the data that are sitting in the different infrastructure platforms like contracts, suppliers, payments, RFPs, whatever, and we make that information available across platforms through Focal Point. And users can then set up their own processes to do what they need to do. So whether that is onboarding a new supplier or doing a request for proposal or doing analytics, they can do that and setting up their processes from beginning to end. So say, I want to include these 6 suppliers. I want to vet them through a set of requirements. I want to get approvals from internal stakeholders. I want to get IT sign off. I want to get legal sign off. All this can be done in an automated and prescriptive way based on what the requirements are of the organization. And they can set up their own workflows to say, all right, this is a very light touch type workflow, and this is a very high intensity, very much due diligence process, depending on, say, for example, the risk of what they're procuring or the criticality of what they're procuring. So the whole idea is making the data available, not without, you don't have to log into 6 different systems to find the information you're looking for. It comes through on one pane of glass, and then using that information as part of workflow from beginning to end. So essentially making it easier for organizations to do what they need to do without logging into multiple systems, using APIs to enrich the data without having them to leave and come back in. And that's really what procurement workflow is all about in this particular context. In the end of the day, we still need, the high transaction volume processes to be run. For example, cutting purchase orders and paying invoices. That still very much happens the way it used to. But in the land of procurement, 70 to 80% of people aren't dedicated to high volume transactions. They're engaged in doing complex workflow, complex projects that involves multiple stakeholders, usually multiple emails, again, which we're now trying to get rid of through workflow. And that's really what the context of workflow automation and with no code is in procurement.
So without no code tools in procurement, typically all these things goes into the IT backlog, right? So it's already managing all these complex systems. In addition to that, needed to catch to the requirements from the procurement team as well, right?
Correct. I mean, at the end of the day, the tool that we tend to replace the most are spreadsheets and email. So the collaboration, the data consolidation, the requirements gathering, all this takes place mostly today in Excel spreadsheets and email. And we're doing two things. Number one, we're bringing all this process work on system so people can see where it sits in the flow. And we're allowing people to use the data that sits in their systems without having to, again, consolidate it in Excel spreadsheets or logging into a system, pulling down the information they need, putting it in an Excel spreadsheet and moving it forward that way. So really the IT backlog has been replaced by smart sheets or Excel today, because if everything you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and that's what people are doing, right? They're doing.
Business is smart, right? If IT can't cater to the requirements, they somehow figure out tools to manage their work, right? So that always happens right from the days of Lotus Notes, right?
That's right.
Sam, just an extension of what Anders said, because you have integration middleware, right? It's a no-code integration middleware connecting all these systems together. How do you see the evaluation is a no-code middleware?
I see it as, I mean, it was always going to evolve in that direction. If you think about it, let's call it the citizen developer, for lack of a better term. You have the business user who's really wanting to get things done very quickly, yet there's a certain level of complexity, right? You're dealing with APIs, session management, and what the likes, which they really do not want to deal with, or don't necessarily have the skills to understand that all of this needs to be coded. So there needs to be a certain level of encapsulation that takes place and higher level of abstraction that would allow someone to say, I just want to be able to pull data from this platform. I'm just looking at account data and I just want to move it to this other platform without having to worry about all the specifics, all the details, simplify it for them. So there's a certain level of abstraction here that needs to take place and encapsulation, which the low code, no code allows you to do very simply just via the graphical user interface. So not only are you able to build the UI and have that UI UX experience, but the citizen developer does not have to worry about securely pulling that data, or making sure that you're interacting the right way with the API. They have no clue whether it's a SOAP API or REST API, what have you. They are focusing on the task at hand, which is creating a very quick, simple application for use case that is needed for the business. And they're able to do it in such a way that by leveraging the platform, they are following a lot of the metrics and governance that IT would want to have in place, which is very important, right? Because obviously IT would not want to have a proliferation of apps all over the place where there is no real governance and understanding of what's happening. So in the world of integration here, what we enable is having that citizen developer getting that experience where the person who has the knowledge of what needs to be done, right, has the ability to do so without necessarily having all the intricacies behind the scene. That has been encapsulated. There's a certain level of abstraction here that they no longer have to worry about.
Wonderful. So that's what we normally use the term internally as well. People who are closer to the problem know how to solve it better, right?
Correct.
So that's what the no-code platforms enable the business to do. So naturally, the next question is to Juan, because we talk about like these core systems, but if you look at any big enterprise, they have like thousands of what we call as the long tail applications, right? Which the business is critical for business to run. But again, with the limited IT bandwidth, they won't be able to cater to all these requirements. So the business need to automate these applications, right? So that's where the workflow automation platforms come into play, right? Juan, what is your thoughts on that?
That's right. No, I think it's a great question, and I kind of look at it as like, from one end we've got the pure no code applications, which I'm going to kind of call an app factory. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got kind of the purpose-driven no code applications. And I think IT responds to them in very different ways. If IT is looking for a way to accelerate development and address kind of what you're calling long tail needs, it's great that I come up with a massive system that allows me to intake inquiries from clients and move them into the organization and do it securely. But businesses are not only creative in problem solving, they're also very good at creating problems by changing the way they're organized, changing the way work gets done. And so it's interesting if you're trying to build non-specific applications. There's advantages to being at that end of the no-code app factory. But if you're trying to build something that fits a specific purpose, and I think it's interesting that today's panel, we've got analytics, we've got procurement, and then Dinesh, you and I with our firms, kind of a generic workflow capability, but all of those are still within a specific genre. We're trying to address the movement of work around an organization, some of us within particular departments, some within an integration requirement. But at the end of the day, that's different than building an app from scratch. And I think when IT looks at building an app from scratch, they tend to get nervous when they see the business users doing that, because if the foundation of best practices aren't already there, they're wondering, are my business users going to be able to do that? But when you look at something like Jitterbit, where the thought process behind what has to happen behind the scenes with integration is largely done, and I only need to come up and address the configuration of that last mile of the integration. That's a true no-code experience, because you're not requiring somebody to be a coder to translate their understanding of the problem into a solution.
Wonderful, thank you. So naturally, the no-code leads to a lot of data, right? Because the business, they will create probably hundreds of applications, and with products like Jitterbit, many of these applications are connected, which results in huge data in the systems, right? And of course, with the data, there should be an ability to analyze the data as well, and the business should be able to do it themselves, right? That's where the no-code analytics tools come into play, right? I want to understand from Jay, how do you enable business, or how do you see the no-code analytics evolving?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think when you think about analytics and using analytics inside the business, every single employee at the company needs access to data and access to analytics. And so really the no-code revolution is about enabling the people who understand the business, who have the context of what's happening in the business, and giving them a canvas, right? A palette of reusable components and tools that they can drag and drop, and allowing them to create workflows that are going to access the data and combine the data from multiple sources, make calculations, and find insights and share those insights with their peers. And the magic of no code applications is that we can abstract out a lot of the complexity of all of that data access and combinations and calculations, so that a very casual end user can perform all this without needing to know how to write SQL or Python or R, or some of these other much more sophisticated programming languages. And so, we're enabling this revolution to go from being a knowledge worker to being a data worker.
Wonderful. So the next part is naturally the intelligence, right? Now we have data, and you should be able to get intelligent analytics from the data that is captured as part of the system, right? Anthony, how do you think the business, because intelligence or AI ML is always an expert domain, right? Do you think the business will be able to actually get the intelligence of the data that is already captured in the system? How is it possible?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Just hearing Jay talk about it. We've for the longest time, certainly for last 10 to 15 years or so, I feel like we've been saying to non-analytics and data science specialists, you should be thinking about the analytics and you should be doing the data science. And we try to move them from a place where they kind of make a request and wait for an answer, then take an action, to a place where we say, well, look, here's a bunch of capability, go and find out the answer. And actually, when you do that, perhaps not surprisingly, they end up with more than one question. They end up saying, well, actually, I didn't quite answer my question. I now need to do something different. I now need to go and find some extra information or bring something into my canvas, as Jay put it. And actually, until really this no-code revolution that we talked about happened, they didn't really have a means to do that, because they would then be blocked by some request that sat in a queue somewhere and couldn't get things done. And I think that's true for as much the kind of more basic analytics as is some of the AI and ML capabilities. But I think with the in the AI and ML space, you have the additional nuance that those non-data scientist users or whatever, they need to be able to, I guess, understand and interpret some of the outputs from those complex models, and perhaps in some cases tune them as well. And again, we're that I don't know, that facet of the no-code industry is still quite emergent, I would say, but actually capabilities like Alteryx are helping. And I guess one of the things we see at Intent HQ, just briefly, is that we have marketing scientists who deeply understand their domain, trying to interpret the outputs from our AI models to, I guess, really understand sort of complex human behaviors. And what we find is the no-code tooling that we can provide them and that their enterprises can provide them really enable them to have a kind of train of thought type analysis where they can go, and now what, and now what, and now what, without having to go back to IT systems or IT partners to say, well, now procure me this thing. And it's that kind of real-time train of thought analysis that adds a lot of value for them. And on the other side of the screen, if you like, where they then want to activate that or do something with it, again, their no-code platforms can say, well, now I found this out about it, I don't actually want to send them an email. I actually think it's better to contact them in this way or do this thing with it. And again, you're really empowering those domain experts to, I guess, influence their customers and influence their domain autonomously, rather than having to wait for partners and having to be dependent on others. So it's actually really exciting.
Wonderful. So going to the next question, it's about the persona we are targeting, right? If you look at IT understand platforms, right? If you talk about integration middleware, if they talk about analytics product, they understand what it means. But business naturally cares about solutions because they have a problem and they won't actually need a product that caters to that problem, right? So do you think the business is searching for a no-code tool? And if they do, what is that persona? What is that no-code, low-code persona? Is it a normal business user? Or who do you think will actually go and explore these products? Juan, probably can start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's the thing that we see is that it's often the frustrated process owner. So it's somebody who says, look, I'm responsible for this team of 200 people that's processing some kind of work, but I've just been told by the organization that I'm going to be merging with another team of 100 people, and I'm going to be taking on additional types of work, and it's happening in 30 days. And the realities in IT, especially in the current realities we're in terms of trying to recruit people, is we can't get developers fast enough to change the systems to address those things. So that business process owner / stakeholder is usually the one with the frustration who's driving the demand. But what's interesting that we're seeing in the marketplace is they also really don't have the time to go try to build something or configure something like this. And so we've gone from kind of having the savvy Susie on the team who's going to figure out how to do it to I'm seeing a really maturing in the marketplace where both IT and the business are beginning to understand that people with the skills of a business analyst, the people who used to come and meet with the stakeholders and ask them a lot of questions about how something should work, write a Word document and hand that over to enterprise IT, already have the ability to visualize the problem and the solution. And so they're also naturally gifted if you teach them how to use these configurable tools at turning around and then delivering something surprisingly, that's a surprisingly strong match to the business for what they were hoping to see, and much faster than IT can do it. And so IT's bravery goes up if they say, hey, somebody who kind of gets how systems works is involved in this. It doesn't seem like it blew up. It's not a boomerang. I didn't throw it out promising it would help citizen developers work, and whammo, it's back in the IT department and we've got to support it forever. When they see that not happen, when they know somebody with system thinking is involved, and the business says, hey, and we're getting what we want faster, that's kind of that perfect middle right now where we're seeing both sides begin to open up. The business was definitely driving the demand, but IT was kind of uncomfortable with it unless it was IT driven. And the business wasn't comfortable if it was IT driven. So we're seeing this middle area open up where business stakeholders are saying, I got savvy Susie, IT's not scared of her, I'm going to send her off. I'm going to have her do this thing in a dark room for a couple of days and come back and everybody's going to be happy. And that's the big change that we see.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, at least, that we are seeing is the age of the new employees, right? They are like digital born digital. They, unlike people like 20 years back, right? They born with smartphones. They know how to use all these complex applications. So computing is not something that is different for them, right? So they want to solve problems themselves. As long as the products are simple, if they enable them to learn something very fast, they are absolutely ready to jump into that and then solve it themselves without relying on IT, right? So the millennial population, the new employees who are joining these organizations, are probably driving the no-code revolution as well, right?
I, th- I, think-
Any, any,
I think that's true, Dinesh. I don't think the iGen or whoever do turn up more savvy, but I also think businesses are more they're more I don't know receptive to thinking that the people who might make these no code solutions, hacky though they are, actually know what they want in a way that historically they would have collected a load of requirements and tried to build the thing they think they want. You know, kind of tells us that, doesn't it? Like you should start with something that works and meets your need, and then try to industrialize it and things afterwards. If you were developing, if you took a product development mindset, you would probably say, well, actually, whoever, Savvy Susie in Vaughn's example, she probably hacks something together that meets her need really well, and that then forms a really, really set of strong discovery outputs for somebody who wants to turn that into something industrialized and the rest of it. Whereas like 20, 25 years ago, like that process was quite different. It was more, okay, tell me what you want and I will build you the thing I think you want. And actually, the no-code revolution has a really interesting and powerful, could have a really powerful impact on the way we consider that kind of product development life cycle as much as anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anders, any thoughts?
Yeah, in our space, we see a lot of IT organizations have already come up with their version of what they think no code, low code should be. And they tend to impose that on the business. So when the business comes and say, hey, look, we have this solution, very often IT will say, look, we have ours, use ours. And it kind of, I understand why they do it, but it meets maybe 75% of the requirements of the business.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting paradigm because in procurement, we try to save money as much as possible, right? But at the same time, if you don't meet the needs of your client, it doesn't really matter how much you paid for, how much you save, dealing with it. So what I'm finding is the open for any purpose built workflow tools don't necessarily meet complex requirements. And I think IT is still reluctant to let these things happen dynamically, driven by the business.
Wonderful. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting comments Anders made is that there's clear need within the business to solve some of these problems, and in the absence of IT embracing no-code tools, the business is going to find solutions, whether it's email and spreadsheets or other things like that. And so I sort of feel like IT in the end is likely to be a really big champion of this kind of technology because it's going to have the capabilities that will allow them to do the things they need around governing these solutions, making sure that they fit into the GRC programs that they're running, and overall, I think it's a win for IT and a win for the business because I think the more we can push the capabilities and democratize the capabilities and put them closer to the business where they actually can interpret and understand the data and have the context for it, that's going to be a huge win for them. And we've seen great adoption across departments, right? We've seen amazing adoption in the office of the CFO. So you have finance people who generally tend to be pretty analytical. They have lots of disparate data sources that need to be brought together. They obviously know how to do sophisticated calculations, but they're not programmers. They're not developers. They don't know how to write SQL or R or some of these more sophisticated languages. And so the no-code platforms are actually perfect because you can enable this, very casual data worker inside a finance department to create all sorts of interesting analysis, and then also automate it, right, where they can have that not just be an ad hoc exercise, but make it repeatable, which is often where organizations really start to realize the value of putting a process like that in place. So I think the future looks very bright for these kinds of tools.
Great. Sam?
In our space, sort of the citizen developers, Jay was mentioning that they sort of fluctuates across different departments. And what I found is that, if anything, they have something in common, is a certain level of frustration and a willingness to do something about it. And I think if you were to try to pinpoint the persona, right, it's somebody that certainly has an understanding of the problem at hand, a business analyst, somebody who is able to understand the use case, oftentimes better than anybody else, but has a certain level of frustration at not being able to do something about it immediately, right? So putting in their hands the ability to effectively, right, we're not going to call it a proof of concept, but take their knowledge, right, as a business analyst and apply it in such a way that they can have a solution that IT, right, is not necessarily going to frown upon, right? Like, again, the willingness to change is, I believe, the biggest barrier to a low code, no code. And that's at the company level, right? IT organizations have a tendency to want to maintain a certain amount of control for very good reasons, right? But I think once they have embrace the low code, no code, the persona of that business analyst who has the ability to do it, who's frustrated about it not being done fairly quickly, and is willing to do something about it. This is what we see across different departments, right? It is not limited to any one department in particular.
Thank you. So the next common question when we talk about no code is about the complexity of applications or integration analytics that no code can do, right? Typically, everyone believes all the simple cases can be handled by a no code tool, but if it becomes slightly more complex, anyway, you need to rely on IT, right? How far this is true, right? Do we actually see this happening in your category, or the no code platforms can achieve a level where fairly sophistication, automation, or integration is possible?
I'd love to jump in on that and just say, I think, again, it's that spectrum, right? If you're talking about an app factory, you're getting awful darn close to what you can do with a low code tool, which where you're going to have to write some code. And that's going to get you awful close to what you can do with code. But that whole spectrum over there at that end is kind of between, totally custom requirements, and I'm willing to deal with the high maintenance cost of it, from partially custom requirements, and I need it fast and lower maintenance, to I'm willing to sacrifice some of my custom requirements to get to fast and theoretically lower maintenance. But then there's these, again, purpose-built platforms, which we're all in that category in some way. HighGear, and I don't mean to sound like a pitch, but I mean, our particular genre is, we've driven really deep into the security and the enterprise requirements. We're not trying to address everybody in the planet's workflow needs, and we're not trying to build apps. We come to that long line at IT's door in a large enterprise and say, who here is looking to build a work or workflow related solution? Come with us. We have a faster, path. But IT has this general fear when they hear anything about no code. If they're not in control of it, they perceive that users are running down the hallway with scissors, and there's going to be a bloody mess at the end of the hall. And I think that as no code vendors in the platform space, we're not limited. In fact, we're often stronger, right? To the point of when we're looking at a procurement application or an analytics application or an integration application, because we've already done so much of the work, more of the time is actually able to be put into the complexity of the particular need. And so I think it really depends on the scenario. There are many situations where I would argue that the no-code platforms are really taking you 85 to 90% of the way really deep into solving a particular problem, whether it's multi-departmental, large organization workflow, whether it's a specific procurement process. A lot of best practices are being brought to bear, but with the unique capability of a lot of flexibility in that last 10 to 15%, which is, as Andrew said, the way you want to do it, the way you want to do it.
I'll jump into that, Vaughn, if you don't mind. So in terms of the integration part, that's what drives IT and finance a little squirrely sometimes, right? Because we API integrate into the crown jewels, right? The ERP, the accounting system, and they want to have complete visibility of what we're pulling, how we're pulling it, what our security is, and so on and so forth. So, I'm with you, Vaughn. Like, we don't service everybody under the sun. We are very specific driven of saying, like, here are the top 5 accounting systems that we will integrate with. We will have pre-built integrations so that at the end of the day, if they have if they're hosted in the cloud and they have public APIs, for us, the integration part is very small. But at the same time, IT or somebody on the customer side needs to provide governance to make sure that we don't do anything we shouldn't do. Not that we would, but they want to control that. And that is really the long pole in the tent for us. Getting the data acquisition is relatively easy. Governance makes it hard. And I completely understand why that is.
That's true. So again, any other thoughts, right? How do you see this evolving, right? Because we have low code. Low code is an abstraction over all the programming languages. And we have no code. No code is an abstraction over low code, right? And does it mean, of course, in low code people can write code, but when we talk about no code, when they will actually go into the low code layer of the platform, right? Will they be able to solve the complex use cases, or how does it look?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that I was going to mention. I think one of the most interesting trends that I'm keeping an eye on is that I think we're actually going to see the market polarize a little bit. And I think you'll see low code start to evolve and mature a little bit into code friendly. And I'm pretty excited about the idea that in one platform, you can take a set of tools that are no code oriented, that are going to let people accomplish a lot around drag and drop and not need to be experts, but within the same platform to be able to have code friendly options as well, where you could, break out into a SQL statement or call out to Python code. And I think there's a real opportunity to blend, in a single platform, what no code can enable and what some code friendly capabilities might do as well. And so, I'm kind of curious whether low code will actually get squeezed out a little bit as not as important, right? Where I think you're going to have folks who either know how to code or don't. And I think that could be really powerful in a single platform to give sort of the simplicity and ease of use through no code and the power and flexibility that code friendly can provide, so that you're sort of meeting everyone in the enterprise, no matter what their experience is with coding.
That's true. So as more and more we create abstractions over low code, I think low code is probably a transitionary state. Probably the no code tools will be capable of solving fairly complex use cases as well, right?
I think what we'll find is that as low code capabilities become better, like the things that people want to do with them just will get more complex, because people are pretty creative, aren't they? So that they'll solve their problem in a no code way, and they'll go, oh, now I want to do this. Oh, and now I still have to go into the low code. But you'll see capabilities that were low code yesterday being no code today. But that will just open up more creative options for people to explore and deep dive into this stuff. And I think what you'll probably see is the coding part becoming more democratized. So people will dabble and they'll try things out, and they'll accidentally become people who can manage low code environments as much as no code ones. And I think just generally you'll see some, I guess, improved literacy in that space because of the way that'll work.
Absolutely. The march in that direction is not going to stop. I mean, a prime example of that is walk into a modern development team and ask them how many know how to allocate memory, right? You know what I'm saying? Even within code, the abstraction has continued to happen. It's not going to stop. We're going to continue to see all that abstraction serving the most creative person who can get the solution out to the business stakeholder the fastest. And I think that's going to cause a convergence, really. And I think we're already seeing it, right? I mean, every vendor out there who was in the BPM space is now saying they're a low code or no code vendor. Everybody who has a finance app now says they're in the process space. Everybody who is particularly in the process space is now suddenly you've got low code. We're being converged together, and what it's going to come down to is our specializations. What problem are we solving better than anybody else in the world, just like it's always been, and how are we able to address that customer's needs and turn their creativity into the solutions they want in the least amount of time. The abstraction, though, isn't going to stop, right? It's marching forward.
That's true. That's true. So pretty much everyone of you touched on governance, right? Because at least in our experience, whenever we go to business, they like the product, but IT is scared because it gives a lot of control over to business. And of course, there are like two aspects that really worried about. The first one is the security of the data, because they can connect systems, they can pull in data, they can push data to other systems, and IT want to actually make sure that the sensitive data is not shared with other systems. The next one is privacy, right? Because the business users may not understand the importance of like not capturing personal identifiable information as part of the systems, right? And whenever we talk about the no-code platforms, the first question is about governance, right? How do you see governance handled in pretty much all your categories? Jay, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my advice to organizations is I guarantee you that these things are happening in your business, right? People are downloading spreadsheets onto their laptops. They are sharing those spreadsheets. And in my mind, deploying tools like this actually will enable IT to govern more of those situations. And so in my mind, the applications themselves will need to have tools to make sure that IT can govern in the way they need to, can flag PII. But what I would tell you is if you're not deploying tools like this, the business is still going to be solving those problems, and they're going to be doing it in a shadow IT manner where IT has no visibility and no control. So in my mind, tools like this are actually going to be a really big help to IT to sort of get out of that shadow IT process and get the business using systems that they can monitor, using systems that they can put some controls around in terms of access. And so, in my mind, tools like this are the answer, not the problem, in terms of what needs to happen with governance.
Super. Wonderful. Yeah, you spoke about shadow IT. This is not a new problem, right? Just that business was using like different tools to solve this problem. Just that the no-code platforms gives like at least one single tool to pretty much all these use cases. At least you have better governance with no-code platforms, right? Anthony, you want to share your views?
Yeah, I do. Just picking on the data governance point. One of the things that we've worked really hard at is I guess safely enabling people to do really what they like with the data. So you don't really want to give creative people access to this great world and say, yeah, but don't do this and don't do that and don't do this and don't do that, because firstly they'll ignore you and accidentally or otherwise and get on with it. But also it will stop them being creative and realizing a lot of the value you can get out of the tools you've just given them. So we work hard to basically front load, making whatever comes into those tools really inert so they can feel safe and comfortable and be creative and all that kind of other stuff. And if it doesn't meet their need, they will tell you and they'll say, look, it's now too bland. I can't get what I want out of it. And we'll work through that stuff together. But I think in governance, you still want to really encourage creativity, because that's the whole point of this no code thing, is to leverage the kind of brain power and domain expertise in the space. But you need to make people feel safe and act safely wherever you can, I think. And I think it's just a compromise to be had there. And it's I guess it's a problem that we've thought about quite a lot.
That's true. Anders?
No, I agree with Anthony says. I mean, you have to make it inert so that people can't make mistakes necessarily, that unintended consequences, right? What we're finding a lot of is you have to figure out what the master data management solution is, and in which systems can you write to and which systems can you not, and in what circumstances. And the other thing we're seeing a lot of, especially in our solution landscape, is IT and governance functions desperately need and want log monitoring capabilities. So which data was pushed where, which data was pulled from where, and what data was viewed by which users. So that way, if somebody goes and peruses PII or PHI information, that they can be alerted to it and be able to govern those types of activities.
Super. Sam?
Yeah, as Anders mentioned, I think it's very important, especially in the world of integration, when you're providing somebody the ability to get access to, let's say, customer information with the click of a button. For them, they don't always understand that, part of that data that they're pulling through so easily really should not be shared, right? So you have to be able to have the controls in place so that even down to the data field at the object level, you are not preventing them from pulling the data, but they are not necessarily pulling data that they should not be pulling. So having those controls in place in a world of integration is something that IT very much insist upon, right? Because those folks do not know what they do not know. They understand that they now have the ability to do this very quickly, very efficiently. They might not know that there are certain type of data that should not really be extracted out of this one system, or the reasons behind why it should not be extracted.
That's true. Yeah, we are actually seeing like visibility and control, right? IT should be able to see what is happening within the no-code platform, and they should be able to control what is shared with other systems as well. The data that is flowing into the system, what is captured and what is shared, right? So the IT wants both of these aspects in no-code platform that they choose.
Yeah,
Juan,
I
any
think there's
thoughts?
another aspect to it too. I think it's kind of managed or controlled creativity, right? One of the things that we see that's actually possible, and I think it's a significant advantage of the no-code realm over traditional code, you can either get to the code or you can't. But in the no-code realm, you've got the ability to delegate down in precision to the items and assets that somebody's actually able to change, right? So if you sell to a client who's got one organizational unit, one problem, then turn it all on. But it's really valuable when you can come into an organization and say, hey, you in IT, you're taking this over now because it's beginning to spread across multiple departments, but you still want to give the departments autonomy over perhaps their forms, their flows. Maybe you want to create a generic library of fields, and you want to allow people in any department to use that library of fields and create some additional of their own, so long as they follow rules and protocols. And I think, as no code continues to emerge, I mean, we've been pressed into a lot of these things by our enterprise clientele, but I'm seeing those same kinds of things arrive everywhere. And the truth is, if you look back 10 or 15 years, a lot of this was happening in financial applications where people would buy a large scale finance app. They were going to deploy it across the enterprise. But they knew that business analysts would be able to configure what the reports would look like for a CFO. They weren't thinking they'd have to create, though, how does a debit or credit work, or how does a general journal entry work? They just have to set up their chart of accounts and their reports. And as that process continued to evolve, more and more of those capabilities were built into the tool, so that eventually you could even say, I want to delegate the creativity to customize our reports to a business analyst, but I don't want that person to be able to get over and change our chart of accounts or get in to see the CEO's salary. And I think, again, this is an advantage of no code because we're already creating a managed environment. And so as we begin to push more managed security, limited creativity, controlled environmental norms in there, that I think we've actually got a significant advantage over distributed governance in this space. And I think that's really where things are moving, and into that model of not only being able to meet the governance requirements, but to be able to distribute and delegate them according to the rules.
Wonderful. So we are into the last 5 minutes. The last question, want to probably get a brief thoughts about how do you see this no-code paradigm evolving in the next 5 years, right? In respect to workflow automation, analytics, integration, and procurement.
I can answer that. For us, I think this is going to be somewhat ubiquitous. I think it's only going to continue to grow as folks, fear of change, right? So start embracing here what they can truly accomplish with a low-code, no-code platform. I think it's going to be fairly pervasive. I think it's going to be across departments, and the business will push for a faster evolution of the platform itself. I mean, business tends to drive IT and what have you. So I certainly believe that we are going to see low-code, no-code platform being used in pretty much every department.
Super. Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think another change you'll see is the interface by which you build these workflows in a no-code world. Like at the moment, you still need people to go and click and drag things somewhere, but tools like the chat GPT stuff, I'm sure we've all seen, mean that you can tell something what you want your workflow to be, and like a no-code backbone to that means it can build that in the background really for you. So you shouldn't,
That's right.
it's like you probably just won't have won't just be marketing scientists or technically savvy people doing it. It'll be execs saying, look, I want you to pull my BI data from this dashboard, and I want you to show me this aggregate, and then I want you to send that on to my stakeholders in this fashion or whatever.
Yeah, that's
And like the interfaces by which you be able to build this stuff, I think could move away from you clicking things on a screen to you saying what you want, which is practically science fiction.
that's true.
Super cool.
I don't think it's science fiction anymore, right? So the level of abstraction that we are creating above any of these products at some point in time, the business users don't have to understand any artifacts, even to the level of form or a report, right? What they want, they probably will be able to communicate to the computer. And that is like probably just a few years away, not more than that, I guess.
I think it's probably closer than we think. Yeah.
Yeah. Anders?
No, I think you're both correct. I think what I see certainly in our space is no code or low code solutions acting as a bridge between the old systems that are sort of being left behind right now. So you have solutions that are, let's call them, last generation or old generations that, it takes a lot for them to innovate. And I kind of see our types of solutions bridging those gaps and being able to utilize the data artifacts that sit in those solutions, but utilizing best-in-class workflow and analytics to drive decision-making, drive processes, and a better user experience. And I think, especially in procurement, you see a lot of changes now with new upcoming organizations leaving the old monoliths behind. And I welcome that change as a practitioner and as a startup founder.
Mm-hmm.
Super. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think maybe one of the most exciting things here is that it's still early days. I think we collectively have great examples where our customers have derived a lot of value from deploying low-code solutions. I think we can all hold up great examples where these solutions deliver terrific ROI. But in terms of, the life cycle of adoption for this type of technology, we're probably just now starting to enter the early mainstream. And so I think I'm just excited about the growth that we're going to see in deploying technologies like this. I'm excited to see that value move out of kind of early adopters getting value from this and really starting to see, each and every company democratize analytics, to put analytics and data in the hands of each and every knowledge worker. I think it's going to be a really fun and interesting ride to sort of watch all of this just get more and more adoption and have more and more companies derive value from it. So I think just that natural evolution of more adoption is going to be really fun and really exciting to see.
Wonderful. Juan?
Yeah. So interesting. I think there's been some great comments already on where our industry is going. I'll just tell you what I think is going to happen as a result of it. I think the creativity that it's going to unleash, I think there are going to be whole new categories of service offerings and products on our planet that we can't even imagine today. And there are going to be all kinds of new entrepreneurs starting businesses. And because of the capabilities of no code, they're going to be able to build platforms and not only catch up with their much larger competitors, but accelerate past them very quickly. It's not only that we're going faster, that our industry is going faster, but we're empowering bright young thinkers to go faster than ever before. And I think we're going to see a lot of shifts in existing businesses. And I think we're going to see whole new market sectors come to light as a result of the creativity that we're empowering with these kinds of solutions.
Excellent discussion, gentlemen. Thank you all for your time and expertise for the last hour or so. As we wrap up the panel today, I'd like to invite each of you to take 30 seconds or so to promote your company, solution, a book, a Twitter account, whatever you'd like. The floor is yours. Dinesh, we'll end with you as our moderator. So Vaughn, let's go right back to you.
Sure, you bet. If you'd like to learn more about the product, because it's more interesting than I am personally, I'd take a look at HighGear.com. That's 8 letters like you can see on the screen there. HighGear.com. We're focused on mid-market to enterprise workflow solutions, and we're extremely fast, but we're one of the only solutions in the space that's really targeted the enterprise requirements of that managed creativity and high degree of security, visibility, and traceability that are required in those environments that are partnering between IT and the business. So would love to talk to anybody who's got additional questions or thoughts on that. We're very accessible, and really, again, appreciate the time to be among such a great brain share today.
Thank you. Anthony, you're up next. 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, no problem. If you want to understand if you want to understand people, pretty human level with analytics, come and see intenthq.com. We specialize in privacy safe insights. We make data safe. We mine it for great insight and help you understand people. Outside of the business, I'm a technologist. If you want to talk to me about any of those things, analytics, AI, big data, that kind of stuff, also happy to have a quick conversation.
Thank you. Jay.
Well, look, I think if you're interested in no-code and code-friendly analytics, you should check out what we're doing at Alteryx. You can visit our website at alteryx.com. We're really, focused on driving the democratization of analytics and helping provide analytics for all. You can also follow me personally on Twitter at J_Henderson, and would love to hear from everyone, and would love to hear what everybody thought about today.
Thank you. Sam, you're up next.
So Jitterbit is a industry-leading iPlus platform that would allow you to develop from the very intricate integrations to leveraging our LCAP app builder, where you can also very quickly create solutions, drag and drop, connect to the backends, whether it be databases, APIs. Come and take a look at a platform that will quickly enable you to actually get your thoughts and use cases actionable.
So yeah, if you guys are interested in learning more about procurement, focal point, or you're thinking about starting a procurement function, you can find us at getfocalpoint.com. We're very accessible. Love to talk to you guys.
Okay. So Kespro is a no-code, low-code work automation platform. It's used by thousands of enterprise organizations around the world, designed for business to automate their workflows while giving IT the visibility and control over what business is creating. If you want to explore further, visit kespro.com. And it's a wonderful conversation with the panel over here. And thanks for being here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all, for your time and expertise today. Really appreciate it. If you're watching live, we encourage you to stick around. We'll be right back in a couple minutes with our next panel of Work Tech Wednesday, Industry 4.0, Charting the Future of Industrial Automation. Once again, for Solutions Review, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thanks again to our panelists. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.